This week's 1044 is brought to you by Chevron Delos 600 ADF Ultra Low Ash Diesel Engine Oil. It's time to kick some ash. Trucking employment underwent a lot of changes in 2022, but what's in store for 2023? Hey everybody, welcome to 2023 and welcome back to the 1044, a weekly webisode from the editors here at CCJ. I'm Jason Cannon and my co-host on the other side is Matt Cole. It's new year, new me time for millions of us, whether that means joining the gym, stopping smoking, or finding a new job.
Recruiting and retention is an ongoing battle, especially in transportation where turnover rates routinely exceed 90% for drivers.
Now, generally, when we think of truck driver recruitment, we think of an HR or marketing rep scrambling to find somebody to fill a seat. But Robert Boersma, who's vice president of operations at Talent.com, says the current dynamic actually goes the other way.
Driver interest is actually on an uptick from what we've seen. So as folks, we saw companies like FedEx doing furloughs. We see fewer open positions that are happening. Driver interest increases. And so what that does is that actually drives down the cost per hire for recruiters. So when they're looking at their end of the year, and every recruiter, just like everybody, has a year-end performance review and says, hey, how did I do this year? They're going to be looking at how many people did I put in seats and what was my cost per hire. And so this is kind of the first reprieve that they're going to be having is over the next little while, it will become less expensive for them to acquire that driving talent, that truck driving talent, because of the way that the labor economy has been and the little bit of the easing that's happening right now. So as much as on the driving side of things, a little bit down, it's going to make the recruiters' lives a little bit easier. And it's always that tug of war that one of them is going to be dealing with a more challenging situation than others.
Data from the Bureau of Labor and Statistics shows that while employment is still relatively high, fewer jobs are coming open. That limits options in any given field and often puts more job seekers into the market.
And so even if they're working right now, people kind of like to keep their options open, and there's just fewer of those options right now. So to give you kind of a sense, in November, transportation jobs, it's been 4 months in a row that they've been down. They lost another 15,000 jobs lost in November on the latest BLS report. And what we see is, that demand is that lowered demand looks like it's going to be sustained because we kind of look at the adjacently involved industries as well. So we're looking at retail and we're looking at, warehouse jobs as well. So retail lost another 30,000 jobs seasonally adjusted in the November BLS as well. And so, that's going to be a driving factor of that. And what we see in kind of what's sustaining that lower demand, which then kind of the lower demand creates fewer positions, which actually creates higher job seeker intent, is that consumer spending is shifting away from material goods, at least right now. We saw really, really strong material goods spending, which then cranks up jobs in retail and warehouse and definitely transportation through the pandemic. But right now we see a significant increase in hospitality. So, people are just putting their money elsewhere right now. And this is probably post-pandemic partially. People are putting their money into travel. They're going places, taking vacations, taking trips. They're putting money into hospitality in terms of hotels, going and staying places, and going out to eat food. So, signing up for services, going out for food, restaurants, and those industries are really seeing actually a material increase in labor demand. And so that kind of plays into that sustained lower demand because companies are not requiring as much in terms of their transport needs. And so that kind of has a bit of a wave effect that then creates lower number of potential job openings, which in flux creates, more awareness for a broader range of positions coming for job seekers or people who are open to working in other spots.
Coming out of the pandemic, there was a fairly significant reversal in consumer spending from goods to services. But the ongoing onslaught of interest rate hikes was and is supposed to tamp that down somewhat. We're still battling inflation and the overhang of a maybe not recession. So what does that mean for transpo jobs sometime this year? Rob tells us after this word from 1044 sponsor, Chevron Lubricants. Protecting your diesel engine and its after-treatment system has traditionally been a double-edged sword. The same engine oil that is so essential to protecting your engine's internal parts is also responsible for 90% of the ash that is clogging up your DPF and upping your fuel and maintenance costs. Outdated industry thinking still sees a trade-off between engine and emission system protection, and Chevron was tired of it. So they spent a decade of R&D developing a no-compromise formulation. Chevron Lubricants developed a new ultra-low ash diesel engine oil that is specifically designed to combat DPF ash clogging. Delo 600 ADF with OmniMax technology cuts sulfate ash by a whopping 60%, which reduces the rate of DPF clogging and extends DPF service life by 2.5 times. And just think what you can do with all the MPGs you're going to add from cutting your number of regens. But Delo 600 ADF isn't just about after treatment. It provides complete protection, extending drain intervals by preventing oil breakdown. Before, you had to choose between protecting your engine or your after treatment system, and now you don't. 600 ADF from Delo with OmniMax technology, it's time to kick some ash.
I don't want to be doom and gloom. I do think there's a chance that transportation employment continues its slowdown. I think there's a chance that it continues its slowdown over the first quarter. That's what the Fed is trying to do. Effectively, increasing interest rates, slowing the economy, decreasing price pressures. They're really actively working on that. And the reality is usually when the government sets their mind to something, it's maybe too broad of a statement, but they have mechanisms that do work. And we do see that things are still pretty hot. So, an indicator of that for me is wage growth, nominal wage growth. And that's something that the Fed is trying to cool. They're trying to keep a handle on wages going insane. And it sounds a little counterintuitive. It sounds like you're kind of, I'm not advocating against job seekers here. Wage growth is great. Everybody deserves pay increases. But when things go too out of control, price pressures just become too much and your buying power actually decreases. So to give you a sense, in trucking, transportation jobs, we've seen a year over year increase of almost 5% and continued very strong growth. So in the latest BLS report, nominal wage growth was 12% in November. Annualized nominal wage growth is 12% in November. So, wage pressures continue to increase. That's one of the things that the Fed is fighting, these interest rates. We know that interest rates have impact on retailers. They have impact on home buyers, and all of those things have a trickle down effect and impact how many shipments are going out. So I think as long as there's consistent effort to try and cool the economy, I think we'll probably see a little bit of a cooling as well in the employment market, which is a bit of a reprieve on the recruiter side, but I know very challenging on the truck driving side. And, definitely one of the things that I think caused some of those job changing and people to get back out there and kind of look at reskilling or trying to try something different a little bit in the short term.
Rob says he's beginning to see more job seekers click on more job opportunities, meaning the people currently seeking employment are looking hard and with intent.
On top of seeing net new higher keywords, we also see higher intention and so higher action. So an existing user might make a search, but rather than clicking on only one job or two jobs, what one of our key focuses right now is, how many jobs are they clicking on? How actively is somebody searching? So, we've all been a tire kicker. I think at some point in our lives through our careers is, hey, I've got a job alert and I kind of check out what's available every now and again. And maybe I click on something if it's interesting or I see a salary that's kind of looking pretty good. And what we're seeing right now is people are showing more interest. And so even though the net number of searches might be remaining somewhat similar, as people are taking that little extra comb through. And so the user activity we expect to see through next year is actually going to double. So right now people might take one or two actions and then kind of abandon their session. What we want to see and kind of what we expect to see is people are going to be taking 3, 4, or 5. So actually kind of taking that deeper look into the available job pool to say, okay, maybe I'm going to take this search a little bit more seriously. So we do expect there to be a net increase in searches. But what we're already seeing is kind of that ripple effect where the net number of actions that people are taking, basically indicating that, hey, I'm actually looking a little bit more actively right now. That's already on the uptick.
Job seeking tends to ramp up ahead of the holiday before taking a break during the Christmas and New Year timeframe, but it's just about to heat back up when those Christmas credit card bills come due. And Rob says when it heats up, he expects it to get hot and to get hot quickly.
Yeah, I think it's going to be actually a heavier swing this year, but there are some industries where things are loosening up a little bit, and therefore people might be a little bit more open to making those sort of shifts. There are some keeners who are new year, new me for sure. The reality is it kind of hits its upswing around the 10th to 12th I'll check the calendar, kind of see what it looks like, but it depends a little bit on the weekends, but usually that first week is pretty quiet. So we'll call it the 9th this year. That's kind of when I expect kind of that first Monday back. Because, you've got Monday the 2nd in January, but that's usually a stat holiday because the first is on the Sunday. And so, you've got the 3rd, 4th, 5th, people are still taking some vacation during that time. It's still pretty quiet the first week, and there's definitely a bit of a ramp up. So I love analogies. I'd look at it a little bit like the gym. You always see a big uptick in gym memberships and people out there working out kind of first week of January. You've got the real keeners who get at it right away. And then you've got probably the bulk of folks who come in the second, the third week after they say, all right, let's do this. Let's get out there. Let's get to the gym. And the reality is for a lot of folks, a job search is almost like going to the gym where you got to kind of just get it done, psych yourself up and kind of get into that mindset and start doing it. And, we kind of see the same things. But yeah, it's not necessarily an immediate uptick. Kind of second, third week is when things sort of ramp up.
That's it for this week's 1044. You can read more on ccjdigital.com. And as always, you can find the 1044 each week on CCJ's YouTube channel. And if you've got questions, comments, criticisms, or feedback, please hit us up at 1044trucking@gmail.com or give us a call at 404-491-1380. Until next week, everybody stay safe.